Hello there. So a few days ago, I posted a few tweets and social media posts across my social media, and they were only short, but I had quite a few comments asking for further clarification on these tweets, on these social media posts. And so I am today going to talk about a further clarification of one of those social media posts. I have spoken to the 9 and asked them to clarify further. So the post was, whilst you now enter the most challenging times for your planet, you also enter the most connected times. This connection can be perceived as dystopian or utopian, depending on vantage point, memory system, awareness, and action taken on the physical level. So I asked the 9 to clarify further on this social media post, and here is what they said.
We say to you that you enter the most challenging times on your planet due to that which we call completion. This is completion of multiple cycles, not completion of the planet itself, as in the end of that planet. It is the end of a cycle, that which many of you know as Kali Yuga. This is the end of a particular frequency which emanates from a core multi-density vortex or convergence of timelines. This we present as an iron core, which has allowed polarity to exist in the extreme. The furthest away from source consciousness within physical incarnation. You are moving through a photon belt space-time, which we could present as a celestial bridge. This is where you are now, in your current now time. This celestial bridge takes you away from an iron core multi-density vortex into a diamond core multi-density vortex. The diamond core allows for a much higher polarity state, such as unconditional love, harmony, joy, bliss, and connection, and light, intelligence, wisdom, knowing, awareness, and experience. This is a source consciousness planetary and cosmic paradigm that still holds a polarized field, yet unity is experienced within that polarized field as a unified field. Your experience within the photon belt, or celestial bridge, is a 0-point field, which holds a core of pure potential. Whilst you are moving towards the diamond core, you are in a space of absolute manifestation. There is no actual core within 0 point, as it is infinite space. We use core for ease of explanation. Whilst in this space, it is possible for a re-emergence of a new iron core multi-density vortex to be manifested if that contained a higher polarity field. Therefore, harmony would be experienced as control, and intelligence, wisdom, knowing would be experienced as technological advancement. However, the highest probability is that a full diamond core multi-density vortex is created, which is a source consciousness, higher polarity, planetary and cosmic paradigm. This is due to the vigilance, discipline and focus of a large group of balanced starseeds who have achieved mastery, if you will, as in moving into full authenticity of their true selves and full implementation of their divine missions. Due to the fact that the opposing team, if you will, we speak here of service to self factions, continue to utilize the 0-point field photon belt fabric of pure potentiality for manifestation, there may well be a bleed through of their intentions, most predominantly the technological advancement aspect. However, due to the fabric of the diamond core creations, the technological advancements will be benevolent to humanity rather than malevolent, despite the service to self intentions. The manifestation wars, if you will, which are indeed experienced as a psychic or spiritual battle, are what makes this time, your now time, the most challenging for your planet. This is within your planet's entire known history. For this war, or battle if you will, takes place within the antimatter realms or the astral planes. This does not reach fifth dimensional consciousness, which is the fully formed density that is broadcast from the diamond core. Hence the need for the awakened, aware, and balanced starseeds to remain within fifth dimensional consciousness. For remaining within that consciousness and living accordingly is that which the photon belt or celestial bridge fabric most responds to. The service to self factions are still able to broadcast their signal that lines up with the frequency of the iron core, yet their activities have been curtailed to such a point that the action they take is much diluted. The actions they take are creating positive ripples and positive outcomes, hence why we say every move they make is backfiring on them. The most they can hope to achieve is a silver core element for their particular aspect of the full convergence. This is a higher polarity dynamic than the iron core and will contain far more gender balance than they would wish, as in the female element will be strong in that particular outcome. This would allow them a small fourth dimensional domain from which to operate within a predominantly fifth dimensional diamond core reality. However, this probability is below 50% at this point and is reducing in probability as you go forward in time. When we refer to this as being the most challenging point for your planet and humanity within your known history, we would like to express that your known history goes back to what you would know as prehistoric times. There was a history prior to this, as we have spoken of before. These other time periods were known as Atlantis and Lemuria. At the times of completion for these ages, this same event would take place, that of the movement into the photon belt or celestial bridge 0-point experience. That which you know as the Fall of Atlantis, and indeed the descent of Lemuria, were most similar times energetically. Yet in your timeline's history, looking at Earth's experience linearly, the understanding of manifestation was not as widespread then as it is now. The psychic battle at that time swayed within your favour for now, for your current now time, and not for then, as the service to self factions held far more power at that time, in a probability sense, than they do now. The Atlantean priests understood death to birth conscious transfer, and therefore at the time of the fall they projected themselves into the next age, or the next time period or cycle if you will, holding intention codes for the diamond core convergence. These codes are that which we call diamond light codes, and these are such that are activated within you now as you traverse the cosmic space-time of the photon belt celestial bridge reality. Hence the reason why we say also that these are your most connected times. For you are connected now with your true self-expressions more than ever before, from the Atlantean and Lemurian codices to the activation diamond light codes for the diamond core template for the convergence and the new age or new earth cycle. The reason why we say this connection you experience can be perceived as dystopian or utopian is due to the memories you have activated, based on your shadow self aspects, hidden memories and traumas. For if you remember the fall of Atlantis as destruction, you will perceive your current reality as such, for you key into false inverted matrix holograms which hold crucifixion frequencies and planetary destruction Death Star templates. The Photon belt celestial bridge will be an abyss and shall manifest as the unknown. Yet if you remember the fall of Atlantis as the magical act and the power of the crystal force, then you will power up into your own empowerment and realize that you are the priest wizard who holds and wields the magic wand. The Photon Belt Celestial Bridge will be a blank canvas playground of abundant creativity and thus the greatest gift one can receive in human incarnate experience. This is the manifestation of your polarity at this time, whilst in the Photon Belt. And this is the event that you are all so focused upon. This event is not happening to you, you are in it. You are submerged within it. It surrounds you. The polarity is therefore not an environment you have no control over, that you are a passive bystander within. The polarity is of your making, and the wizard's magic wand you wield is your activated self. Sword of truth, vertical axis, or full wheel matrix configuration. The polarity is your choice, for the environment itself molds itself to you and bends to your will. This is the law of magnetic attraction in its fullest expression, for it is pure magnetism. This is the fabric of the Photon Belt Celestial Bridge. You are the one who makes the choice. It is only you and can ever be only you. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9.
So I'm now going to look at an analysis of that. Before I do that though, I would just like to say that I did actually ask some further questions of the 9 after this information came through. So what I said to them was, can I ask a few questions based on your last transmission? Firstly, are you saying that the service to self factions cannot possibly manifest an iron core convergence? That it will definitely be the diamond core? The silver core you mentioned that could be a potential for them, that you said would be a 4th dimensional domain. Can you speak more about this? And is this in any way connected to or dependent on the US election? Can you also tell me what's likely to occur geologically on our planet when we manifest the full diamond core convergence? So those are the questions that I asked of the 9 after that first part came through. And here is the response to those further questions.
It is not possible for the service to self factions to manifest an iron core convergence within Earth's current trajectory. The only way they can experience an iron core convergence would be to reincarnate back into an alternative iron core convergence, and they would need to fully polarize within the negative polarity in order to be able to achieve this. Even then, the probability is low that they would be able to do this due to the karmic ties they have created with Earth's current trajectory. The most probable outcome for them would be to live in service within Earth's current trajectory, be given opportunities to transmute into a higher polarity. which is a most difficult path for them due to their resistance to the positive polarity, or for them to reincarnate into another third density planet that holds a silver core or a hybrid iron-silver core or similar vibrational element. This is a subject outside the scope of this current series of transmissions, but we can return to such at a future point. So yes, the inevitability is that of a diamond core convergence of timelines, or what we call a multi-density vortex. However, there are smaller cores, if you will, that branch off from the full central core, and a few of these hold a below 50% probability of manifesting as silver cores in your current trajectory. This is not what the Service to Self factions desire. They would indeed see this as a consolation prize, if you will. The silver core projection would be a fourth dimensional domain. A 4D domain is a reality that exists within the fourth dimension, but does not encompass all of the fourth dimension. For thousands and thousands of years, the Service to Self factions have held many, many 4D domains. This has been their power grid, and this is how they have controlled humanity for so long. Many of these inverted 4D domains have now been dismantled, and those that exist are disintegrating and rebooting, if you will, in their new form, powered up by crystalline diamond frequency. For no iron core projected 4D domain can exist within a diamond core multi-density vortex. The lowest frequency that can be broadcast from a diamond core is silver, which is the feminine force that overpowers the masculine. It is a distorted polarity when viewing it from a negatively polarized perspective. However, the silver ray is the truly balanced divine feminine, which is an emanation from the diamond core template and exists fifth dimensionally. This is the exact same thing as saying your moon is becoming liberated from negative control. How this is connected to what we are saying moves outside the boundaries of your current quest. You ask us if this silver core 4D domain creation is dependent on your US election. We say to you that your US election and all other outcomes within your third dimensional reality is an outcome of the overall photon belt celestial bridge 0-point manifestation. Therefore, the US election must reflect that manifestation, which holds the creational seed point templates for the diamond core multi-density vortex. The silver core 4D domain creation is dependent on enough negative polarization being held as you move higher and higher through the photon belt, which, as we have said, holds a below 50% probability at your current time. We cannot say any more regarding this issue at this point, other than to deliver the information to all starseeds to hold fast to your sovereignty and your unity with one another, for these are the most powerful tools for the moulding of the photon belt fabric at your current Nexus Now point time. Remember, sovereignty and unity. Sovereignty and unity. And allow compassion to be the thread that runs through both. If you can hold this at critical mass level, which you are currently doing, then you will manifest the desires you hold regarding your US election or any other outcome within your physical reality. You ask us what is likely to occur geologically when you manifest the full diamond convergence. There will be many, many geological changes, yet these will take place over thousands and thousands of years. Your planetary core moves from iron to diamond, opening up multiple possibilities for your planetary expression and presenting that which you know as hollow Earth, as well as that which you know as flat Earth. However, a third dimensional interpretation of both of these planetary expressions, hollow Earth, flat Earth, will lead you into false interpretation. Only the multi-dimensional imbalance holds truth, for a diamond core planetary expression is multidimensional. There will be other changes, such as your oxygen. Our conduit does not have the knowledge needed to express what we wish to convey. Just know that the CO2 shall raise to a different equation, and your respiratory biologies will, through evolutionary change, reflect such new life force. Rivers, lakes, streams, seas, all shall change. Tectonic plates shall shift. But this is naught to be alarmed at, for it shall take place over thousands of years. Wildlife, through the animal and plant kingdoms, shall come alive in ways many of you cannot imagine, with the neon and the fluorescent returning to your lands. Mythical creatures return in new form, and you, the ascended humans, shall be what you may know as superheroes, if you will. Much glory and wonder awaits you, but only if you remain focused upon now, as in your now time, and all that you are now, through surrender, acceptance, and humility. For it is indeed the Christed truth that the meek shall inherit the earth. Know what this means, and you will access this kingdom we speak of, that is paradise. It is a return to what you may know as the Garden of Eden. It is so very important, it is indeed crucial, that you remain focused upon the now moment, the 0 point, which is your current home galactically, for you are within the photon belt field. If you project yourself into the glorious future that awaits, then you are forever waiting and seeing your present now point as less than. In order to manifest Paradise Eden ascended reality, your now time must be a match to it and not less than it. There will be many other changes geologically, for your land is becoming that of a 4th density planetary system rather than a 3rd density planetary system. You will have the ability to create your own landscape, for the 4th density experience is that which we call a Genesis project. Those who arrive in balance within this geological Earth-Gaia system will be the creators and hold the Genesis project at their fingertips. We speak in much metaphor, for this is what activates you. It is also your sanctuary, your immunity, and your shield. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9.
Okay, so now I'm going to go through an analysis. I won't go through an analysis of the entire text, but I will pick out key points. So the 9 is saying you are entering the most challenging times on your planet due to that which we call completion. So we as a planet, as a humanity, are in a time period called completion. The reason why it's called completion is it's a completion of multiple cycles. It's not completion of the planet as in the end of the planet. It's not the end of humanity. It's not the end of life. But it's a completion of multiple cycles, astrological cycles, planetary cycles, cosmic cycles, but multiple cycles. So what the 9 is showing me is that we're always in some kind of cycle as a planet, as a galaxy. You know, as a consciousness, we're always in some kind of cycle. But sometimes cycles meet up with other larger cycles, and you'll have 2 cycles occurring at the same time, or sometimes 3. But what we are in right now is a convergence of multiple cycles all lining up at the same time. So if you imagine your personal astrological cycle, so based on the standard astrological model, the planets and the sun are in a certain position when you are born, depending on the time you are born and the place you are born. When you get to your birthday, when you're 1 year old, and all of the birthdays thereafter, those planets and that sun, that solar sun, they all come back to the same place relatively as to where they were when you were born, which is why your birthday is your solar return. You are returning back to the birth point, back to the ascendant point, the beginning point. Now, this is only based on one model of astrology, the standard 12-house astrological model. It's not necessarily the most accurate astrological model out there, but that's a whole other issue. So what I'm trying to get at here is that's one cycle. Now, if you imagine that there were other cycles going on, and there actually are, your algorithm, your emotions, say you had birth moments for other things, so not just from the moment you were born, but the birth moment for a new job, a new relationship, moving to a new house, moving to a new country, starting a new project, an anniversary. So they're all other birth moments, and they create cycles in your personal life as well. So if you imagine a point where all of these cycles around you are creating one moment where all the birth moments for all of those cycles line up together on the same day, if you like. Now, with this completion, it isn't a day, it's a time period, a much longer time period than a day. So that's what we're in. We're basically in the birth moment now. We've come back to the birth point for the galaxy, the solar system, the planet, humanity, on multiple levels within multiple cycles. That's completion, and it isn't just one day. It lasts for a long time, for years, and we're in it now. So that's completion, that I understand it. Because it's the birth point of multiple cycles, it's also the end of multiple cycles as well. And one of the ways of referring to this cycle, this multiple cycle, is Kali Yuga. I don't know much about the Yugas, but that is the one that we are in, or that we have come to an end of. We are coming to the end of the Kali Yuga cycle and moving into a new cycle. So that's another way of describing it. So this is the end of a particular frequency, which emanates from a core multi-density vortex or convergence of timelines. So I've spoken about this before, where instead of looking at your timelines as if they are multiple timelines in front of you that you can choose from, as in timeline A, timeline B, timeline C, timeline D, and your choices choose those timelines. This is more about where timeline A, B, C, and D all converge together, rather than presenting as a straight line, a train track, a tram line. They present as a convergence, like a sort of a core point, a central point, like a circle, a sphere, a circle, where all the timelines converge, where inside that circle, it isn't just one timeline where everything the same happens in every single timeline. It's all the multiple timelines crossing over one another. That's what this convergence is, which the 9 have now said is a multi-density vortex. So I would presume that rather than being multiple timelines crisscrossing across one another and all converging at the same point, what we have here is multiple densities in a vortex. So it's kind of like home base, if you will, the home point. the 0 point, and that's what it is. It's the 0 point. So the frequency that's been emanating from the core of this multi-density vortex or convergence of timelines that has been the focus of frequency for this planet within our known history so far emanates from what the Nine are calling an iron core. Now, is this metaphor or is this literal? The Nine say elements of both. It's not as if you would imagine a giant circle, a giant sphere made of iron. It's more that there are particles coming out of this vortex that hold the frequency of iron. And if you were to actually look at these particles under a microscope or take them down to their lowest denominator, you would see the same structure that's on the periodic table that would represent iron. Now, I'm completely just totally lost when it comes to that sort of thing, and chemistry and everything else, cosmology, but that's what the Nine are saying. So it's literal in the sense that the structure of the particles that are being given off from this core point hold the same chemical composition on the periodic table that we know it as the structure of iron. But it's, if it were to be looked at under a microscope, what you would be looking at is a frequency, not an actual substance. So I don't think we have the technology to be able to look at this in its fullness on this planet, or at least we don't have the technology made available to us. It may well be that these technologies are available, but we haven't been told about them yet. So that's more like it. We have technology available that can actually look at these things and examine these things that we aren't aware of just yet. And all this is part of this whole new Earth experience. These technologies will be made available to us. So this iron core, these particles, because they're cosmic celestial particles, they hold a frequency that merges with humanity. And this frequency is the frequency that is like a creational frequency. The Nine also call this a Genesis frequency, or Genesis codes that create realities. They are at one with us. We are at one with these particles, and these particles that come in from this central point of this core are within our bodies as well. They come up through our DNA. So we're part of these particles. And what these particles do, because they hold this iron frequency, they allow or create polarity. They allow polarity to exist, and they allow polarity to exist in the extreme, because from the higher vantage point, that's what we chose. As a group soul, group mind, we chose to experience this extreme polarity. But that's only from the group soul, group mind perspective. When you actually look at the individualized perspective, we didn't choose to experience this over and over and over again and actually come through a reincarnational cycle. That's a hijacking. But from the group soul, group mind, higher perspective, we chose to experience this extreme polarity because it allows us to understand unity. If we can understand the absolute strongest polarity field, which shows us separation, then we can understand and experience and know unity and complete connectedness. So that's why we chose to experience this. So this is the furthest away from source consciousness within physical incarnation. So this kind of iron core polarity is the furthest away one can get from source consciousness. So the polarity can be manifested in many ways: a male and a female, a positive and a negative, good and bad, all of those things. So that polarity is there, and it's extreme on both sides of that polarity, and within that polarity we have what is furthest away from source, because source is unity. It isn't polarity, it's unity. It only becomes polarity when it starts to divide, and that's part of its creational pulse. So when you move into creation, there is division, because in order to find experience, one needs division. And in order to create, one needs free will. You can't have free will without choice, and you can't have choice without division. Unity doesn't have choice, it's oneness. There is nothing to choose between within unity, because there is only one frequency, one pulse. You wouldn't make a choice because there's only one. So this is kind of why we've been through this experience, why we're going through this experience, why we chose to have this experience. So the 9 then went on to say, you're moving through a photon belt space-time. So out in our actual galactic landscape in the cosmos, which our planet and our consciousness connects to. So space-time would be the actual space out there, actual space. The planet is moving through what the 9 are calling a photon belt. So this is a part of space, kind of like a spiral of space, a huge circle of space. And in that belt is light, photonic light, that's very different to the iron core frequency. So the iron core frequency that's been around our planet for thousands and thousands of years, we are no longer receiving these iron core polarity codes or activations, or the form of dense light that it is that matches the structure of iron on the periodic table as a frequency. We are now in a place in space where we have light, photonic light. So if you were to look at the particles of photonic light in a microscope, you would see, I don't know if there's any instruments that would actually be able to see photonic light. And it's really difficult to describe what it is. It was easier to describe the iron core particles. The photon particles, the photonic light particles, would look like crystal structures that are brilliant, glowing, and neon. So brilliant that if you were to look at them through a microscope, your eyes wouldn't be able to look at them. It's too bright for the human eye to see. And it isn't even light. It's not light in the way we perceive it. It isn't sunlight. It isn't artificial light. It's light that exists within a darkness. So it lights up the darkness from the inside, is the best way I can explain it. Rather than the sun shines light onto something so we can see, and our eyes adjust to that light and we can see, an artificial light does the same thing. It emanates so that we can see things. It works with the optics in our eyes. But photonic light is even multiple times brighter than sunlight and artificial light, but it's inside the darkness, sort of lighting it up from the inside. The 9 say to me, if you were to look at sunlight and artificial light and photonic light and explain it in the sense of movement or fire, in the sense of an explosion, then sunlight and artificial light would be an explosion, and photonic light would be an implosion. So that's a better way to explain it. So that's where we are right now. We're in this space with all this light inside the darkness that is a huge implosion. Now, this light isn't just something that we see, and we can't actually see it with our physical eyes. This is something we feel, we become one with, and just the same with the iron core particles that were in our DNA, this photonic light is also inside our DNA. I am literally just going to check if this is still recording me. Yes, it is. I'm actually using my husband's laptop because mine is really playing up today, and I'm not used to this one, so I'm just checking it. So that's where we are in space. We are surrounded by this photonic light, and we can feel it. It's in our DNA. It's coming up from our DNA, flooding our bodies. So basically, there's an implosion occurring within us. We don't necessarily feel it like an implosion, but that's what's happening. And it's because it comes from this sort of a crystal structure, which is like a multiple crystal structure, like not looking at one crystal. To look at it, you would see little crystal structures with multiple crystals inside of all different sizes. And that's what's in our DNA. That's what's happening to our DNA, and it's emanating outwards as the DNA is raising higher and higher with all of this light. It is a difficult one to explain, and you do have to use kind of a metaphoric picture, because all of this is frequency. How does one explain frequency? So I'm doing my best here. So the other way to explain this photon belt space-time full of this photonic light is a celestial bridge. So if you were to imagine a bridge across the heavens, a bridge across space, so there's a space before the bridge and there's a space after the bridge. And then you go into this space that is the bridge. And the bridge takes you from one space to another. So that's where we are. I mean, another way of looking at this would be to say this is a cosmic wormhole, if you will. The nine have already talked about the core emanation coming from a multi-density vortex or a convergence. So we may know this as a wormhole, or what we would know it as would be a cluster of wormholes, multiple wormholes all superimposed on top of one another, like multiple stargates, a stargate system. So that's what we're in. We're not outside of it, about to go into it, and we're not coming out of it, although from another level we are in all of those places. But right now, in a sense of space-time, as in where we actually are in space, we're in this bridge. We're inside this bridge, or on this bridge right now. This celestial bridge takes you away from the iron core multi-density vortex. So the core of that multiple density vortex, that infinite structure that was our entire galactic reality, consciousness for this planet, this bridge takes you away from it. So we're moving away from this iron core and the emanations and the iron particles, which create this extreme polarity, this furthest away from source experience. We're moving away from that into a diamond core multi-density vortex. So we're in a multi-density vortex, this huge collection of stargates or wormholes or converged timelines. But the core point of this one is a diamond rather than an iron, a piece of iron. It's not an iron core, it's a diamond. So if you were to look at this diamond under a microscope, as I'm trying to break down what the particles are like. So these are, what these would be, what the diamond would be, is all that photonic light that's inside the darkness as an implosion, an emanation as an implosion. What the diamond core would be is the photonic light coming together and creating a structure. And that structure is the nearest thing we would know it is a diamond. And the reason why the nine use words like diamond and iron is because iron doesn't reflect the light. It's heavy, it's dark, and the particles are actually consciousness of that. The frequency of iron, the consciousness of iron, the consciousness of heavy and dark. That's where we've been for thousands of years. And now this is the consciousness of the diamond, which is the highest source of light. So on the periodic table, you would see perfect crystals. So like the photonic light as a crystal structure, the diamond is the perfection of that crystal structure. And that's the consciousness we're going into, which is the complete rays of the DNA structure, because that diamond frequency is in us. So that's how I would kind of explain this. The diamond core of this convergence allows for a much higher polarity state. So it's still a polarity, but a much higher polarity state. So unconditional love, harmony, joy, bliss, connection, and light, intelligence, wisdom, knowing, awareness, and experience. So if you look at these as a polarity on one side of that polarity, because this is a much more unified state, so you wouldn't really see this as two sides, but if you wanted to break this down into two sides, you would have unconditional love, harmony, joy, bliss, and connection on one side, and then on the other side of the polarity, light, intelligence, wisdom, knowing, awareness, and experience. Now what this is the intelligence we use. It's the third dimensional brain as an interface processing this light, this crystalline structure that's within us, processing this new DNA. So instead of right brain hemisphere for creativity, love, spiritual experience, and all of those things, dreams, etc., and left hemisphere being logic, mathematics, grounded practicality, instead of having that as a polarity, that's raising into unconditional love, harmony, joy, bliss, connection, light, intelligence, wisdom, knowing. So it's a much more harmonious merge within the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And the same with the actual polarity experience on Earth that humanity experiences, which is dark, negative, evil, that sort of fear-based emotion and action, and then unity, togetherness, service, helping one another, healing, caring for one another, which is love-based action, love-based consciousness. So that's the extremity of the polarity, is fear and love. And as we raise that, we're moving into love and light, or light love and love light. So you can see the extreme difference between this polarity. And when you experience the polarity of love, light, and light love, it doesn't feel like a polarity at all. It's a win-win situation. It's a win-win emanation, rather than the scales being an unwanted aspect of that scale and a wanted aspect of that scale, depending on the polarization you hold, because some people would want the opposite depending on their polarization. So this is a source consciousness, planetary and cosmic paradigm that still holds a polarized field, yet unity is experienced within that polarized field as a unity field. So, as I said, although there is polarity, it's experienced as unity. Your experience within the photon belt or celestial bridge is a 0-point field. So this is what I was saying about this bridge, this photon belt. It's 0 point. It's the moving from one place to another, but it's being in the actual part of the transformation that is the transformational period itself. So when you're in that transformational space, you're creating the next bit that you go to. It's like passing through a stargate in one split second. So you're in room A and you pass through a stargate and go to room B in a split second. And then you decide, I'm actually going to stay in the stargate. So I'm not going to be in part A or part B, I'm going to stay in the stargate. That's when you give the coordinates to the stargate to help you get to part B or room B, or wherever it is you want to go. So that's where we are. We're in the part of the Stargate where we give the Stargate the coordinates. And what are the coordinates? They're us, they're our emotions, our consciousness, our knowing, our action. Everything we do is giving those coordinates to the Stargate to create the destination. And that's how we're creating our reality. So whilst you are moving towards the diamond core, you are in a space of absolute manifestation, because 0 point holds a core of pure potential. It's fabric that has not been molded yet, but it's pure potential. So that's what many would know as free energy. It's infinite, an infinite source of energy. That's what we're in right now. And we need to know how to navigate it. We need to know how to work with it in our own bodies and in our reality and in the consciousness we experience and our connection to the galactic and the planetary grids. We need to understand and know how to work with that pure potentiality, because if we aren't aligned with where we want to go and what we want to be and what we are, then we're sort of lost in a sea of pure potentiality and not know what to do with it. I've said this before, it's like giving a child a huge sword and expecting them to know what to do with it when they can't even pick it up. You have to be strong enough to pick up the sword, and you have to know how to use it. So this is kind of where we are. We're in this field of pure potential, moving towards the diamond core. So in the bridge, the core of the structure you're in, which is where we are now, the core that is emanating towards us is no longer these iron particles of fear-based reality. Neither is it fully the diamond particles of a love-based reality. It's the pure potentiality of the creational energies. We're in the Genesis code. We're inside the Genesis program, and we are able to use it. We are the Genesis program at the moment. We hold the Genesis codes. So yes, the nine say you are in a space of absolute manifestation, more so than this planet has known for thousands and thousands of years. Whilst you are in this space of absolute manifestation, it is possible for a re-emergence of a new iron core multi-density vortex to be manifested, if that contained a higher polarity field. So you can't go back to this extreme polarity. We've moved away from that now. However, if a higher polarity field was artificially created somehow, then that could, if you will, trick the natural cycles, the natural movement, and create another new iron core potential. This is what the service to self groups are trying to do. So that higher potential would have to be similar to light, love, and love, light, which is the natural, but it wouldn't be love, light, and light, love, because that's a love-based frequency, and the service to self would want the fear-based frequency. That's why they would manifest the iron core particles. So what the nine is saying here is, if they could artificially create control instead of harmony, or technological advancement instead of intelligence, wisdom, and knowing, because those things match that frequency, then there is a probability, a possibility that they could recreate this, a new iron core structure, which is what they're trying to do. They believe that that's possible, and they believe that that's what they can do, and that's what they're trying to do, which is why they're generating everything they can to create fear, because they've lost a lot of the ways that they used to generate fear before. That's no longer available to them. So they're constantly trying to find ways to generate fear. But then the nine go on to say, the highest probability is that of a full diamond core multi-density vortex. That's the highest probability right now. That's what we're creating, which is a source consciousness, higher polarity, planetary and cosmic paradigm. So it's higher polarity. Either way, we've moved away from that extreme polarity. We would have to come into intelligence and technological advancement and control within that. Sounds like the New World Order. That's exactly what it is. That's what they're trying to create. But the highest probability is a full diamond core multi-density vortex, the source consciousness, higher polarity. Now, the reason why the highest probability of the diamond core multi-density vortex being created is due to the vigilance, discipline and focus of a large group of balanced starseeds who have achieved mastery, if you will. And the 9 go on to say that mastery, what they mean by that is moving into full authenticity of their true selves and full implementation of their divine missions. So the word mastery is a difficult one. Some people don't like it. They think that if you say I am a master, that you are using your ego. And that may well be true for some people who say, well, I'm a master, I'm an ascended master. They may well be using ego. But what the 9 is saying here is every single starseed who is balanced, who has moved into full authenticity of who they are and their true selves and have knowing of who they are, knowing of their mission and are implementing their mission, they have achieved mastery. So those individuals that say, I am a master, are actually a master. However, most people who've achieved that state won't ever say, I'm a master, because of the ego connotation. But having said that, you must know you are a master. And you must know that you have achieved mastery, because that is how to manifest that mastery, which is the discipline, vigilance, and focus that you need. It is the full authenticity of your true self and the full implementation of your divine mission. And you need that in order to create the diamond core multi-density vortex on a high probability level and prevent those that would rather create an iron core multi-density vortex and implement the New World Order. So do you see how when you say, or when you know you are a master, you know you are in mastery, that in itself creates the diamond core convergence? You are creating this reality through this photonic bridge by your knowing of your mastery, by your knowing of your authenticity and your empowerment. It's not just a knowing for you so that you can go out into the world and say, I have sovereignty, I have knowing, I have empowerment. That is a creational, that is the Genesis code. That is your Genesis code. That's you creating the new earth and preventing the New World Order. So by you having knowing that you are a master, you prevent the New World Order and you save anyone who's been a victim of that fear-based service to self system. Innocent people, children, you're saving them. You are saving children when you are aware of your mastery. This is how connected everything is. And this is why the 9 have told me to respond to the requests for further clarification of these social media posts, because the spiritual aspect of what is going on now is the creational point of it. The spiritual is underpinning everything. The 3rd dimension is simply the manifestation of it. So to concentrate only on the 3rd dimension is useful so that you can know where you are as a physical incarnated being, but to understand what's happening galactically, cosmically, astrologically, and also within the consciousness, within our frequency, within our DNA, is imperative, because everything is merged. Then the 9 go on to say, due to the fact that the opposing team, we speak of service to self factions, continue to utilize the 0-point field photon belt fabric of pure potentiality for manifestation. So they are continuing to work with their manifestation, as I said earlier, trying to spread fear and chaos as much as possible. That's all part of their manifestation, and then using that for their own ritualistic ceremonial work, if you will. And they'll be using all sorts of different methods for that black magic, if you will. So that's what's meant by that. There may well be a bleed through of their intentions. So their intentions are still sort of bleeding through into the manifestation that we are creating. The starseeds are creating this diamond core template, this new earth, this harmony, but there may well be a bleed through coming in from the service to self factions. However, what's coming through is most predominantly the technological advancement aspect. So it's kind of the advancement of technology, control through technology. So this isn't a full New World Order system because it isn't an iron core template, but it's a bleed through of it. Now, the 9 go on to explain, due to the fabric of the diamond core creations, these technological advancements, which are being used for control, that's the core intention from the service to self factions that they're trying to implement. I mean, they're trying to implement the whole New World Order. They're not trying to think, oh, well, let's get a little bit of technological advancement in the manifestation of New Earth because the starseeds are going to get the diamond core template paradise timeline. We need to get our bit in. They're not thinking that. They're thinking New World Order, iron core templates, or whatever metaphor they use for that manifestation of reality. But because the diamond core template is so much the predominant timeline, and the starseeds are holding space for that in their magical workings, which is far more powerful on a critical mass level, all they're getting is this bleed through coming in as technological advancement. But due to the fabric of the diamond core creations, these technological advancements, even though they have a malevolent intention, that's flipping. And these technological advancements will end up being benevolent to humanity rather than malevolent, despite their intentions. So this is what's happening. This technological advancement created from malevolent intention, malevolent intent, is flipping and ending up being positive. So we have to be so careful about watching where technology is going and instantly thinking, oh, that's awful, that's control, that's Borg, that's dreadful, that's New World Order. We need to look and think, well, hold on a minute, what is this? Where's it coming from? What's the seed point of it? What's the intention of it? Who is behind this? Let's look at the person that's behind this. Let's look at that person's energy. Who are they associated with? What's their energy? How could this technology be used malevolently? How could it be used benevolently? Because both is going on, because we're still in the photon belt 0 point pure potentiality. We haven't reached the full diamond core template reality yet. So it's still this sort of psychic ping pong game or chess game, which is going on. So you're seeing elements of both. And it looks like the New World Order. This is what the 9 told me right from the beginning of this whole sort of COVID lockdown situation. It looks like a planetary takeover. It looks like the New World Order because that's part of that manifestation. But it's an attempted planetary takeover. It's an attempt to implement the New World Order. It's not a definite. And it's looking, when you look energetically and psychically and spiritually and clairvoyantly, it's looking, well, it's not even extremely unlikely that they get their New World Order. It is an inevitability that they don't, because the inevitability is the diamond core template, which is the paradise timeline, the ascension timeline. That's what's being created. So due to the fabric of the diamond core creations, the technological advancements will be benevolent to humanity rather than malevolent. So we really need to be very, very discerning and use all the tools we have at our disposal to discern what this technology is, what this advancement in technology is, because what is coming from a malevolent intent is ending up being a benevolent. So we really, really need to look at that. It's so, so important. The manifestation wars, if you will. So this is this psychic manifestation, psychic law of magnetic attraction working, coming in from the starseeds, the open heart, the unity, the love, the fifth dimension, and everything coming in from the service to self, darker factions, their black magic, etc. The nine are referring to this as the manifestation wars, which is indeed experienced as a psychic or spiritual battle. That's what's happening. We are in a psychic battle. We are in a spiritual battle. The people in the third dimension think, well, where's this battle? Where's this war? There's no war. There is a war, but it's a psychic war. It's a spiritual war. And the reason why the starseeds are winning, if you will, is because they know not to see this as a war or a battle, because they are creating a higher polarity than war or battle. They're going above the war or battle manifestation, and they're simply looking at unity. They don't look, they understand about the spiritual and psychic battle. I understand about the spiritual and psychic battle, but I don't focus in on it. I don't think, right, we're in a psychic battle. Let's get on in there. Let's manifest the Diamond Core template. Oh, look over here. We've got the service to self, and look what they're doing. So clash. We're not having a psychic clash going on, because that in and of itself will just reverberate back into polarity. So that isn't what's happening. That's why the nine call the starseeds activated, balanced, authentic starseeds. They're not in polarity. They don't think of polarity. You can still see that this is a psychic war and a psychic battle. You can see that the service to self individuals, you can see what they are doing, but this is something playing out on a lower density field. You move above that. And when you move above that, there is no polarity there other than love, light, and light, love. There is no battle. Everything is unified. And that is the place where you create your seed point intentions for the new earth reality. That is the place you manifest from. And that is the place right now that is merging in complete oneness with the fabric of this photon belt. That's what's happening right now. So this psychic or spiritual battle is the experience of these manifestation wars. And this psychic or spiritual battle, this is what makes this time the most challenging for your planet, which was the question. Why are you saying this time period is so challenging for this planet? And the nine are responding saying, well, you're in the middle of a war. This is the most challenging war. This isn't a physical war like World War I or World War II. This is a psychic war. It's a spiritual war. So it's the most challenging for your planet. That's what the nine mean. And all of the manifestations and the results of these manifestation wars, that's what's playing out on Earth right now, which is why it's the most challenging time for our planet. This is within your planet's entire known history. So when you look back to the beginning of what we know educationally, academically, as the beginning of our history, the nine call that the beginning of our known history, because there are historical periods before that that are not looked at in academia or in any kind of historical study. And if you were to suggest that there were periods before our known history, to most mainstream historians, they would say that's fluff, that's psychobabble, and that is metaphysical nonsense, new age hoo-ha and woo-woo. However, it's true. And there are historians now who are the new historians. They are aware, and they are aware that there's more history, and they're uncovering that. It's been deliberately covered up, but that's going off topic. So this is within your planet's entire known history. For this war or battle, if you will, takes place within the antimatter realms or the astral planes. So this is an astral war, antimatter realms. This isn't happening physically. It is happening physically, but this is the result of or these are the third dimensional catalysts to try to generate fear, or this is the third dimensional, multi-dimensional working to manifest harmony and love. That's where we are with this battle. So this war or battle that takes place within the antimatter realms and the astral planes, this does not reach fifth dimensional consciousness. Fifth dimensional consciousness is the fully formed density that is broadcast from the diamond core. That diamond core of that convergence, the signal it's broadcasting, the frequency it's giving out is fifth dimensional consciousness, created by the starseeds who hold fifth dimensional consciousness. So they're lining up with it. They are becoming a mirror and a match to it. The diamond core reality and the starseeds fifth dimensional consciousness of the open heart are lining up, and that's the fabric of this photon belt. That's what's being manifested. That's what's reverberating as a frequency throughout the photon belt. Please excuse the dog barking next door. My neighbour's got 3 or 4 dogs, and they're always barking, so sorry about that if you can hear some barking. It's not mine. My dog's being a good little boy, but the neighbours are out there barking. So this does not reach fifth dimensional consciousness. That's the fully formed density broadcast from the diamond core. Hence the need for the awakened, aware and balanced starseeds to remain within fifth dimensional consciousness, because every time they move into fifth dimensional consciousness, they telepathically unify with other starseeds that are doing the same, and they keep that dimensional consciousness level, that awareness, that frequency that's cosmic and galactic and physical as well. They keep that at that critical mass point level, and that's constantly moving into these photonic light, pure potentiality fabric that's in a state of pre-creation, and that pre-creational fabric is molding itself into the match to that fifth dimensional consciousness that the starseeds hold. So that doesn't mean you need to be in fifth dimensional consciousness every day. If you wake up and you've got a headache, or you're not very well, or you're in a bad mood and you shout at someone, or you're crying, or you lose your 5D consciousness that day, it's okay, because there's millions of others holding the space. We're not all going to be dragged down out of fifth dimensional consciousness at the same time, despite the efforts of the service to self factions to do that. The starseeds have not budged from that space in this entire COVID lockdown scenario since March. We've moved in and out individually, and we've been pulled down and been worried and fearful and upset and confused, but we've come back to that place. But there's always a certain amount of starseeds in fifth dimensional consciousness holding that grid space, and it's remained at critical mass, and that's where we are now, and that's increasing, because there's always something that fifth dimensionally thinking individuals can move into this bliss focus with. Bliss, joy, happiness, contentment, creativity, all those things unified together, and the communication between us all, which is taking place across the internet. You know, there's so much censorship right now for those who are talking about sort of more third dimensional truths, but there isn't really much censorship at this point for those discussing fifth dimensional truths, because from the deep state factions that are not at the higher echelons of the service to self arena, they don't see that as a threat to them, and it isn't a threat to them directly at all. It's simply a manifestation of the timeline that's an inevitability that's natural. So that isn't a threat to them. What they're trying to do is create an unnatural timeline, an artificial timeline. The natural timeline's not a threat to them. They're simply trying to superimpose on top of it. And because we are communicating with one another and creating that telepathic grid, that's holding space continuously for that fifth dimensional consciousness, that fifth dimensional reality. So, hence the need for the awakened, aware, and balanced starseeds to remain within fifth dimensional consciousness. For remaining within that consciousness and living accordingly is that which the photon belt or celestial bridge fabric most responds to. The fabric of the celestial bridge and the photon belt most responds to. Now, why? Why does it respond most to living within fifth dimensional consciousness, living accordingly, living your life accordingly? Why does it respond to that? The reason being is it's light attracts light. So as I said, we've got this implosion of photonic light, and then the starseeds are radiating light from the heart and the mind and the pineal gland and the body. The love is the parallel to the light. So if you want to look at it as the love is the female, the love is the goddess, the love is the divine feminine looking for her mate, the light is coming to find the female. The light is the male coming to find its mate. So you have this twin flame connection out of the eternal flame being the fabric of creation itself, source consciousness, and the one aspect of the twin, humanity, aware humanity, projecting outwards in love. And we have this photonic light projecting outwards in light. Another way of looking at this is magnetic and electric energy merging together, the electric being the male and the magnetic being the female. So the magnetic is the starseeds, the magnet of the critical mass that we are creating. And the response to it, the 0-point fabric, which is the electrical field. So it's merged together within the DNA and within the galactic construct of space-time. And we're coming in through this antimatter realm, which is known as time-space, but they're merged together. Again, that's a twin flame merging, space-time and time-space, love, light, and light, love. They're twin flame mergers emanating out of the eternal flame of oneness. This is what's happening right now, and it can be seen with the pineal gland, with the third eye. It can be felt throughout the chakra system. It can be felt within the heart. When you move into that space of opening yourself up in a receptive state with the divine feminine energy, you can feel this. And when you feel it and you perceive it as being heard, being seen, you then merge with it and are part of its creation. That's what it's meant by having the Genesis codes. Genesis and genius are one and the same frequency. The Genesis codes are the creation, and genius is the balanced right hemisphere brain alignment that you need to create the Genesis codes. So you become a genius and you create the Genesis codes. And through the Genesis codes, you become a genius. Again, you have the twin flame, and that's the polarity. The higher polarity is the twin flame. The eternal flame is unity, which is forever burning as an eternal flame of source. And when it divides into its opposing counterparts and allows itself to move through this free will exploration of self, that's the twin flame. And that is the fabric of the fifth dimensional consciousness. It's a twin flame consciousness, which is why it's the consciousness of the heart, because twin flame consciousness is love. Everything is related to that flame, that eternal flame, and the twin flame expression of it. So that's the reason why living within fifth dimensional consciousness is the is what the celestial bridge fabric most responds to, because it's light and love, and a twin flame merging. The service to self factions are still able to broadcast their signal that lines up with the frequency of the iron core. So the signal they broadcast doesn't line up with the photonic light. Yes, it's still creational, it's still a Genesis code, but it doesn't line up in this twin flame merge. It's not the divine marriage between the male and the female, the Heros Gamos, which is occurring right now galactically and planetary. It doesn't align with that because it lines up with the iron core. So they can still broadcast their signal of fear and chaos and everything that lines up with iron core particles, which is the old energy that we've been through for thousands of years. They're still able to broadcast that signal, but the iron core is in the past. So they're lining up with something from the past. They're not lining up with the present, and they're not lining up with the future. They're trying to bring the past back and go back to that level of control, which is not possible anymore because we've moved beyond it. Now, even though they're able to broadcast their signal and line up with the frequency of the iron core, their activities have been curtailed to such a point that the action they take is much diluted. So their activities have been curtailed. I mean, that's a huge, long story as to why their activities have been curtailed, but it's a starseed journey. It's what the starseeds have done. The ability to hold the higher consciousness is what's going on the physical level in multiple fields. It's what's going on politically, notably with Donald Trump and everything that his administration is doing, which is why I speak about Donald Trump and the Trump administration, and people will say to me, why are you political? You being political means that I can't take your spirituality seriously because spirituality and politics are not intertwined. That's true. Politics and spirituality aren't necessarily intertwined as subject matter, as construct. But when you look at the greater picture through your spiritual understanding, then you look at the political field and think, oh my goodness, it's playing out there. So how can it not be intertwined with it? Someone said to me, the minute the Nine started talking about politics and getting involved in politics, I didn't want to listen to you anymore. The Nine are not involved in politics whatsoever. Of course, a spiritual guidance system, a higher dimensional consciousness is not interested in politics. Of course it isn't. What they show me are multidimensional perspectives of our multidimensional reality. One of those perspectives is the third dimension. Within the third dimension, we have people. And what the people do affects the reality. And what people are doing in the political field and in the medical field and the educational field and in all the other fields is affecting the reality. So as a planetary psychic, as a planetary channel, as a planetary clairvoyant, it's your job to look at all these fields and tell everyone what you see. So that's why I talk about politics. It's not the Nine, it's me. And the Nine teach me to see all these structures. They don't talk to me about politics. The Nine don't say to me, you need to get the American people to vote for Trump, do it now. Of course they don't. So I think that kind of goes without saying, but I'm getting off track here anyway. So the service to self factions are still able to broadcast their signal that lines up with the frequency of the iron core, yet their activities have been curtailed to such a point that the action they take is much diluted. So action they took in the past would line up with the iron core particles. There'd be a magnetic fear pulse, and it would work. And they got the people into the places of power that they wanted. They managed to create the black magic that they wanted, and they managed to keep everything controlled. If anyone were to rise up with their light, they could squash that, because fear was lining up really, really well with this iron core, and it was creating this pulse, simply because that is extreme polarity, and that was the fabric of reality at that time. It was supposed to be extreme polarity. It was supposed to be extreme polarity because that's free will, that's choice, that's learning, that's discovery. It was supposed to be that way. It wasn't supposed to be hijacked to this degree from our perspective. That is absolutely an infiltration. But the polarity field was supposed to be that way. We were supposed to experience extreme polarity and separation. It didn't have to look like the way it's been in the last X amount of hundreds of years, and certainly in the last 100 years. That's an infiltration. So now the action they take isn't lining up with the iron core, because the iron core is the past. It's reverberating through this photonic light field, and yes, there's a certain amount of magnetic attraction that's being created. And if there were no starseeds working with the love light frequency of the fifth dimension, then they would be able to sort of bring a lot more of that iron core fear-based energy into the photon belt and potentially create a new iron core reality with a higher polarity. So it would be the New World Order. It would be super states, and it would be technological advancement that's actually weaponized. That would all match up within that photon belt, but because the starseeds consciousness are in there, they can't get their frequency into that photon belt. They can't get it in there because it's awash with love, light, love frequency. It's full of fifth dimensional light, light matching light, love matching love, twin flame consciousness swirling through that photon belt. So they're only getting a very small piece of the pie, basically. So their activities have been diluted. Their activities have been curtailed, and the action they take is diluted, as in the result of the action they take. Everything's backfiring on them. Their intention to create something very negative is creating something mildly negative and somewhat negative, but then there's positive repercussions to it. So yes, I'm not saying that they're not actually getting some of their negative focus into our physical reality. They are. If you look at all the violence and you look at what's happened with lockdown, and people are still having to sort of live in a situation where their rights are taken away from them, or it looks as though they're about to be, and they're having to wear masks and everything. So they're still getting their frequency in there. And from the third dimensional viewpoint, it looks like they have control. That's what it looks like. It really does. And it's very, very difficult to explain to somebody who's thinking third dimensionally how the light is winning and how the future is so wonderful. How do you explain that to someone when they're in the third dimension and what they see as New World Order? So I absolutely understand that, and that's why I'm here doing my job, and that's why so many others are doing their job too, and saying the same thing, because those who aren't able to raise to that psychic, clairvoyant, pineal gland activation and heart opening connection and bring forward this information, we are doing it for you. If you resonate, that's wonderful, then you can stay with that. If you aren't sure, if you listen to me and think, well, I don't know, I could take on board what she's saying, but I'm not going to subscribe to it because I don't have any proof of this, that's a good place to be for you. And I wouldn't expect you to be any different. And if you don't resonate and you think this is nonsense, then you don't have to listen. It's fine. I'm here for those who need me. And if you don't need me, then, well, I'm not here for you. It's like there's no need for me to speak to you. If you don't take seriously what I'm saying, or even take it on board, you don't have to listen. I'm not here trying to force my view onto other people. That's the last thing I want to do. I'm telling you what I see, and it's your choice how you take that. So important to say, because so many people perceive my teaching to be me forcing my word on others, and that's not what it is at all. So anyway, back to the script here. So the actions they take are creating positive ripples and positive outcomes. Hence why we say every move they make is backfiring on them. So everything they do that has a negative intention is actually merging with this photonic belt light that's mixed with all this starseed fifth dimensional consciousness of love and focus at critical mass level, and flipping into the positive, because we are no longer in extreme polarity. We're in the photon belt. We're in this celestial bridge, which is a 0-point field of creation, heading towards a fifth dimensional diamond core template convergence. So everything they do is matching the fabric of reality and becoming positive, even though some negative things are occurring, which is why you're perceiving this reality as the New World Order. Because sometimes you aren't seeing the positive outcome because the mainstream media is controlled, therefore it's not showing you what's really happening. That's why people like myself and multiple other people in the alternative media are doing the best we can to get the information out to you that we have. And you are doing the same thing to those that you meet in your life when you move into the knowing of what's happening. So the actions they take are creating positive ripples and positive outcomes. Hence why we say every move they make is backfiring on them. So this next bit is interesting, and obviously I asked a question about this. The most they can hope to achieve is a silver core element. Just checking that this is recording. The most they can hope to achieve is a silver core element. Now, this is the first time I've heard of the silver core. The Nine have been speaking to me about the iron core and the diamond core for about 2.5 years now. They've been talking to me about these convergence of timelines and these different parallel timelines, and what the service to self want to create, and what the service to others are creating and desire to create and are here to create. This is the first time they've mentioned the silver core element. So what it appears this is it's kind of the iron core, but raised in polarity, because they can't manifest an iron core. As in, if you look at those particles under a microscope, you'll see the frequency of what matches the element of iron on the periodic table. What they can potentially manifest is, if you look through a microscope, you would see the frequency within the particles of what matches silver on the periodic table rather than iron. So it's a higher polarity field. So the most they can hope to achieve is a silver core element for that particular aspect of the full convergence. So they can't manifest a full silver core convergence, because what's being manifested is a diamond core, but they can take aspects within that diamond core reality and create little silver core realities, which isn't what they want. They want the iron core, and they can't have that because it's in the past. So this silver core is a higher polarity dynamic than the iron core, as I just said, and it will contain far more gender balance than they would wish. So what they did within the iron core fear-based manifestation as part of the inverted matrix was to unbalance gender and move the feminine, the female, away from the dynamic and create a patriarchal masculine distortion. And they had to do that by distorting gender on multiple levels. And when I say that, every person who's lived in this on this planet for the last several thousand years will have been subject to this gender manipulation, regardless of how that manifests within them as an individual. But there would always have been the positive energy with them as well. And intentions of iron core fear-based chaos always had the ability to flip, because there's always elements of diamond light coming in right from the beginning of our known history, because that came in from Lemuria and Atlantis. So it was always there, but not to the degree that it is now, where it's swung the balance into the diamond energy being the most predominant energy. So this is a higher polarity dynamic than the iron core and will contain far more gender balance than they would wish. So gender balance is the twin flame energy, the female male energy. The silver core, how that would manifest in this sort of gender presentation is the female element will be strong in that particular outcome. So what they would have to do with that silver core is distort the female energy rather than the male, which is why you have these really strong, distorted divine feminine individuals in the focus of the deep state. So, you know, we know that Kimola Horace and Hilary Clontin are just two of those individuals. These are strong women, but they're not strong as in strength of the heart, strength of compassion, strength with boundaries, and strength with will and with empowerment. They're strong as in forceful, aggressive, and controlling. So you've got controlling female incarnated individuals who are broadcasting a distorted male energy, even though they're incarnated as female. So that's just two examples of this. This is the female element that will be strong in that particular outcome. So the silver core is actually a feminine core, but because it's still a lower vibration and closer to the iron, and this is not the silver ray. The silver ray is akin to the platinum ray and is a higher dimensional frequency. The silver core is using the metaphor of silver as a higher polarity metal, rather than a diamond, which is the highest polarity love like crystal. So these colors and codes and gemstones and crystals are akin to frequency. They're flame letter codes, and every clairvoyant, psychic channel or spiritually activated individual who's teaching will have a completely different set of metaphors and templates that may be similar but different, which is quite confusing for the seeker, because when one person says silver core, that might mean something completely different to another person saying silver core. When one person says I am a master, that means something completely different to someone else who might say I am a master. And multiple terminologies have different meanings. So we need to understand semantics really, really well when we are using new age terminology, esoteric terminology, as part of our information, as part of our toolkit, as part of our education, as part of our teaching. We need to understand semantics and metaphor in order to be able to work with all these different teachers, because, as I said, we're using the same terminology and they have different meanings. So this is a female element. I nearly said female elephant. that's a little bit of a Freudian slip, isn't it? The female element will be strong in that particular outcome, but it will be a distorted, aggressive, distorted divine feminine. It isn't a divine feminine at all. There's nothing divine in that presentation of that distorted femininity. So within that silver core convergence timeline reality, these small elements within the diamond core, this would allow them this small fourth dimensional domain. So it's not fifth dimensional. They can't access that. That's fully the diamond core template. That's fully the higher consciousness love light field, the twin flame from the eternal flame. They can't access that. It would have to be fourth dimensional. So this would allow them a small fourth dimensional domain from which to operate within a predominantly fifth dimensional diamond core reality. So the consciousness of this reality that we are moving into, that we are creating, that is our inevitability, and it's quite close to us. That reality is fully fifth dimensional, and all they can operate within that is a small fourth dimensional domain, which isn't really going to give them what they want at all, because it's awash with fifth dimensional energy and will just simply be bypassed by those who are accessing the fifth dimension. So the most they can do is trap some few remaining third dimensional individuals, and the fifth dimensional starseeds are going to be helping them anyway. So this small silver core fourth dimensional domain is not really that useful to them, and potentially they would take a different option on a soul level rather than take that in a fifth dimensional 5D world. They won't want this option because it simply isn't what they want. So this would allow them a small fourth dimensional domain from which to operate within a predominantly fifth dimensional diamond core reality. Now, the probability of them even manifesting this small silver core 4D domain is below 50% anyway. So it's not a given that they could even manifest this right now. And if they can, it's not what they would want. It's not very useful to them. Maybe a few might take this, but it's no threat to the overall fifth dimensional reality at all. And the probability of them even manifesting it is below 50%, and it's reducing in probability as you go forward. So as we go forward in time, closer and closer to the diamond core inevitability, it's getting lower and lower that they could even create these silver core 4D domains. When we refer to this as being the most challenging point for your planet and humanity within your known history, we would like to express that your known history goes back to what you would know as prehistoric times. So that's the start of our known history, pretty much. But there was a history prior to this, as we have spoken of before. These other time periods were known as Atlantis and Lemuria. So I've spoken about this, the Nine have spoken about this, I've talked about this, I've written about this. So there were these time periods. They were not places, although places were involved. They were time periods, as in the whole planet was in the time period of Atlantis. The whole planet was in the time period of Lemuria. The rising of Atlantis is the metaphor for the rising of the polarity back to pre-fall times, because in Lemuria there was an incredibly high vibrational state. In fact, that was the first point of physical incarnation, was Lemuria, and the beings then came down from the frequencies as light beings and became more and more and more physical over millions and millions of years, and then moved into Atlantis. So at the times of completion for these ages, this same event would take place, as in the movement into the photon belt or celestial bridge 0-point experience. So they went into what we're going into now. They had a time of completion when they went into the photon belt, the celestial bridge, when they went into manifestation. Lemuria, it occurred with them, and Atlantis, it occurred with them. And there were harmonics between. The Nine haven't really spoken to me about the other ages, so all they show me is Lemuria, Atlantis, and now. But actually there were two other time periods as well that they haven't really talked to me about. So our time period now is the fifth age. We are in the fifth age. That may be metaphor. The most predominant ages we need to know about are Lemuria, Atlantis, and now. Lemuria, it spanned billions and billions of years, because it was Lemuria that fell down the frequencies from light manifestation down to physical. So those first two ages were probably in the Lemurian times, as in the first age being the age of light, and then there would have been a semi-light, semi-solid, somewhat liquidy, watery kind of age, and then we would have come into physical Lemuria, which would have been the third age, and then Atlantis would have been the fourth age, and we're the fifth age. And I don't know what name we are, to be honest. Atlantis and Lemuria. And again, Atlantis has been given many names, Lemuria has been given many names. There is no one name for these periods. These are just the names that are the most predominant knowing in our consciousness. So at the times of completion for these ages, the same event would take place. The movement into the photon belt or celestial bridge, 0-point experience. So that which you know as the fall of Atlantis, and indeed the descent of Lemuria. So the fall of Atlantis was a strong civilization with so much wisdom and spirituality and technology and crystal understanding. The fall of Atlantis is the fall from that height, as in the height of wisdom, technology, crystal manipulation, and crystal merging and advancement. The fall was the fall from that because of the going into the photon belt, and then what happened with that manifestation war between service to self and service to others. That was not a favorable outcome for service to others. This was more of an equal outcome, really, with quite a lot of service to self desires or agenda were fulfilled then. Completely different now. So that's why we say the fall of Atlantis. It wasn't a fall from frequency, it was a fall from the technological advancement, and that was predominantly through crystal technology. The descent of Lemuria is a fall through the frequencies. It's a descent down from the light levels, the light plasma body, into the sort of semi-solid liquid water type body, into a physical body. That's why it's the descent of Lemuria, and that took such a long time. but they were similar times energetically. So it was still a fall down. So Lemuria came from fifth dimensional consciousness down into third, and Atlantis was doing the same thing as well, but in a different way. And this is where we are. But we are not heading for a fall or a descent. We are heading for a raise right now. So that's why it's very different this time, because Atlantis knew that this time period would come about again. So they placed codes within themselves and they projected themselves forward into the next age, which is who the starseeds are. The starseeds are Atlantean priests and Lemurian sages as well that have projected themselves forward. But predominantly the Atlantean codes have been sent forward into the starseed memory system because they knew that this time would come again, and they did not want to fall this time. They did not want to acquiesce and concede to the service to self-control and the iron core. And so everything that we're manifesting right now is the Atlantean codex, which they projected themselves forward into. They projected their own complete and individualized memory systems forward into multiple incarnations, or forward into an antimatter reality to come into incarnation for this time period. So there were two pathways that the Atlanteans projected themselves into, and that's who the starseeds are. So in your timeline's history, looking at Earth's experience linearly, so what that means is the descent of Lemuria and the fall of Atlantis were similar times energetically, as is our time now, but different because we're going into the rays. Yet in your timeline's history, looking at Earth's experience linearly, the understanding of manifestation was not as widespread then as it is now. So when you look at Earth's linear progression backwards in time, we're taken to a particular timeline in Atlantis. And in that timeline, which is directly in our history as a planet, in that timeline, the understanding of manifestation was not as widespread then as it is now. Now, what that would suggest, if the nine have actually brought focus to the Earth's experience linearly, that would suggest that other histories, if you go back in time along a different timeline, you will actually find yourself in Atlantis that did have understanding of manifestation. But our linear timeline, now you can go further with this, our linear timeline back into the past is created by where we are now. That's been hijacked. So this hijacking would can potentially change those past timelines. So that prevents those Atlantean codes from reaching the starseeds now. It hasn't worked because the Atlantean codes have reached the starseeds now. But one of the ways to prevent the starseeds from accessing those Atlantean codes would be to somehow shift Earth's past, and they would do that by shifting Earth's present to line Earth up with a past trajectory that was different from the one that they had. So this is kind of going into the whole timeline jumping and all of that. So that's a whole other sort of topic. But going back into our linear past, right back to Atlantis, whilst they had understanding of death to birth conscious transfer and projecting the crystal codes forward, and they had a high understanding of crystal technology and working with crystals and the crystalline, they didn't understand manifestation like we do. It was seen as a technology and as a science, but it wasn't necessarily understood in a spiritual sense as we understand it now, as in that we can merge our consciousness with this photonic light within the galaxy. So they didn't line up the understanding of the galactic grids and the planetary grids in the way that we have, but they sent the codes, so memory codes of everything they knew forward. So what happens is, in the next age, there should be more wisdom gained. And if you remain within your individualized memory system as an incarnated being, you're going to then accumulate more learning. So all of those star seeds that were projected forward from the Atlantean priesthood will have had multiple lifetimes in incarnation. Many will have had an experience within the antimatter realms, but both of them would have come into this time period now in 2020 with an advancement of wisdom and understanding. And that's who these individuals are. That's the starseed consciousness. The psychic battle at that time swayed within your favor for now and not for then, as the service to self factions held far more power at that time. So this is what the nine are meaning. This is what I was trying to explain. There was this psychic battle, and it swayed within our favor for now because they projected the codes forward. Because if they hadn't done that, we may be going through a repeating cycle. We may now be heading for another iron core reality as we come out of the photon belt. But the Atlanteans knew about the time periods. They knew about the cycles. They didn't understand about manifestation like we do, but they knew about the cycles. So they projected those codes forward. So what was not a particularly good outcome for them then, they knew it would be for them in the future, and they made sure that it was the same souls. And this is so important. You are an Atlantean priest or priestess if you are a starseed that's living in balance and awareness right now. That's who you are. And you will be resonating deeply throughout the core of yourself when I say this, if this is who you are. So the psychic battle swayed within our favor for now, not for then, as back then the service to self factions held far more power at that time in a probability sense than they do now. So yes, they've held power for thousands of years, and they still hold power now, but the power they hold is not in a probability sense. Because when you look at probabilities, the probability is within the positive. The probability is the manifestation of the diamond core template. The probability is harmony. The probability is higher polarity. The probability is the golden age and ascension. There are no probabilities. The probabilities for, I'm saying that there are none. Of course, there are some probabilities for them, but they're much, much lower when it comes to the agenda that they hold. The Atlantean priests understood death to birth conscious transfer, and therefore at the time of the fall, they projected themselves into the next age or time period or cycle, holding intention codes for the diamond core convergence. So I've just explained that. These codes are that which we call diamond light codes. So that is the code that was projected forward into the actualized full memory system as an individualized consciousness that then went forward into these other incarnations. They held diamond light codes to be activated at the time of entering the photon belt so that we could manifest the diamond core convergence. And that's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. The Atlantean plan is coming to fruition, and that's what they wanted, and that's how they worked with the law of magnetic attraction. They projected their desire down genetically and down through the incarnational line, rather than moving into the oneness of consciousness, which we're doing now as starseeds, because we have the diamond light codes. They weren't born with diamond light codes in Atlantis. They learned the diamond light codes through the crystal technology, and then they gave those diamond light codes to their own individualized consciousness memory system and gave them to us because we are them. These codes are that which we call diamond light codes, and these are such that are activated within you now as you traverse the cosmic space-time of the photon belt celestial bridge reality, which I just explained. Hence the reason why we say also that these are your most connected times, for you are connected now with your true self-expressions more than ever before, from the Atlantean and Lemurian codices to the activation diamond light codes for the diamond core template for the convergence and the new age or the new earth cycle. So yes, I've just explained that, and that's the connection. The connection is not just a telepathic union. with everyone on this planet who are star-seeded and activated and working to bring down the deep state and activate the diamond core reality and the ascension. We're connected with the past, we're connected with the ancestors, we're connected with our Atlantean selves and our Atlantean family, our Lemurian family, and our star family. That is the most connected time. So the most challenging times, because we're in this psychic manifestation war in the photon belt, and most connected times, because we have the most connection, the most awareness. That's what the diamond light does. It shines a light on everything. It shines a light on the shadow. Most challenging times, it shines a light on the connection, on the harmony, on the unity, most connected times. The reason why we say this connection you experience can be perceived as dystopian or utopian is due to the memories you have activated based on your shadow self aspects, hidden memories and traumas. So your own memories that you've activated from other lifetimes, from Atlantis, assists in making up who you are. Your shadow self aspects, the aspects you're not aware of, aspects you may have buried, hidden memories, memories you're not aware of, and traumas, things that have traumatized you and hurt you that you haven't brought to light. So it depends how clear you are of all those things. So if you have worked on your shadow self aspects, worked on your hidden memories and traumas, balanced those memories, worked with past life memories, then this experience right now is utopia. But if you haven't done that, if you are heavy with all these buried traumas, hidden memories that you haven't worked on, you can't raise to the heart, you can't raise to the higher sight, you can't look with the pineal gland and think, wow, this is amazing. Look at this crystalline reality. Look at this connected grid. I can't believe I'm part of it. How lucky I am to be alive right now. You can't say that if you are weighed down by these trauma fields and these hidden memories. All you can see is the third dimension. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is New World Order. We're done for. It's the New World Order. So that's why it's dystopia for you. It's dystopia. And you'd be right, because that's the reality you're seeing. And it's looking like that. And unfortunately, you manifest that for yourself. Even within a Diamond Core template reality, you will go into a 4D domain, just like the service to self individuals can potentially hold these 4D domains. You can have a 4D domain trapped in the fourth dimension. So you need to raise that light, work with the hidden memories, work with the shadow self, come into balance with all those incarnational memories, and look down the bloodline forward, down through the descendant line in the future, down through the ancestral line, back to Atlantis, and work on all of this and take it to a place of light so that you don't feel heavy with all of this. And then you can see with the pineal gland. This is the same thing as Kundalini. You're raising this fluid up the back of the spine, over the head to the pineal gland to open that eye. And when you do that, you see multidimensional reality. You see multidimensional fabric, and you can work with it. And that's why we are manifesting a Diamond Core template, because the amount of individuals who've done this work, who've raised the Kundalini up the spine and raised this fluid and moved with this diamond sight, the amount of people that have done that is at critical mass. And you can feel it sometimes when you raise the Kundalini, and it can feel quite traumatic the first time it happens. It can be very dynamic if you're not ready for it and you still have traumas and you've gone and raised the Kundalini at the same time. You take the traumas up with you, it's very fearful. But when you do this in balance nice and smoothly and you come up to the pineal gland site, it feels like droplets, like they actually feel like little liquid diamonds falling into your inner eyes and giving you this crystalline sight. You can actually feel them, especially first thing in the morning when you first wake up. It's like a drop, 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 and like, oh, and there's your psychic vision. So this is what we are doing. That's why it's utopia for us, because that brings with it so much fullness of who we are as source self. And we have a world and multiple worlds to exist within, and can go anywhere and can have all of these wonderful experiences of richness and abundance within a physical body. But going off topic somewhat, so let's get back to the script here. So if you remember the fall of Atlantis as destruction, you will perceive your current reality as such. So if you remember, do you know, I have memories of Atlantis and it was awful, it was destruction, which it was, then you will perceive your current reality as such, because you're living in that that perspective of the fall is destruction. What you're doing here, the Nine is saying, is you perceive your current reality as such, you key into false inverted matrix holograms which hold crucifixion frequencies and planetary destruction Death Star templates. What this is memories of planets being destroyed, memories of you living on a planet and that planet being destroyed. So when you watch something like Star Wars and you see like the Death Star exploding, or any other sci-fi that's got that storyline, it triggers a memory within you, because this happened in the fall of Atlantis, but it's been superimposed as a false matrix into like a false memory system. And the crucifixion frequencies are the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and the crucifixion of those who held the Christ energy. It's a destruction template, and it's playing out like a video film in the ether over and over and over and over again. And people within the third dimension, when they try to raise to 4D, and if they don't do it in balance, that's where they go. And it's like, oh, New World Order, destruction, crucifixion. It's playing out over and over again. We're doomed. We're doomed. That's where they go. It's a false layer within the fourth dimension. You need to go above this to see the clarity and see the clouds and see the future. So if you remember the fall of Atlantis as destruction, you will perceive your current reality as such, for you key into false inverted matrix holograms. So whilst you can understand that the fall of Atlantis was destruction, if you can look at it in another way, if you can look at the opposing perspective, and I have people write to me saying, why, Magenta, are you saying that we are moving through a situation similar to Atlantis? We don't want to go through that again. It was absolutely awful. It was dreadful. We don't want anything to do with Atlantis. If you're in resistance to Atlantis and the fact that you are an Atlantean reincarnated priest and that you hold the diamond light codes from Atlantis, if you are in resistance to the fact that there was any good in Atlantis at the fall, then you bring that consciousness into your reality now and you experience it now. And that's why you're seeing this reality as a New World Order template. If you remember the fall of Atlantis as the magical act and the power of the crystal force, then you will power up into your own empowerment and realize that you are the priest wizard who holds and wields the magic wand. The Photon Belt Celestial Bridge will be a blank canvas playground of abundant creativity, and thus the greatest gift one can receive in human incarnate experience. So the fall of Atlantis was a magical act because they sent the diamond light codes forward through the death to birth conscious transfer into us, because we are them. The power of the crystal force is the ability to know that the crystalline DNA template will not remain reduced at the time of the next movement into the Photon Belt Celestial Bridge, that the DNA template will raise and reassemble back into its original 12-stranded, 144-strand form. The Atlanteans knew all this, so they projected that forward. When you remember that from Atlantis, the magical acts that were going on, the crystal power that was going on and being sent forward, and that time was lining up, they were creating a Stargate, the Atlantis Stargate, to now. They were creating Stargates to 2012 and the energy of 2012, and obviously that is now the 2020 energy. They were creating these Stargates back in Atlantis. If you move into the memories of that, then you power up into your own empowerment and you realize that you are the priest wizard. The reason why the Nine say priest wizard is back then the Atlantean priests were not religious priests. They were spiritual, magical individuals that had wisdom and understanding. but they were more akin to wizards than priests. However, they were priests, and so that's why the 9 call them priest-wizard, because if you visualize a priest in a church, that's not the same kind of priest that the Atlantean priests were. And there were black priests and white priests back then as well, and I don't mean physical colour of the skin, of course, that was the case as well, but I mean there were service to self priests and service to others priests, both working in a similar way that they are now, both holding the same agenda. So you will realise that you are the priest wizard who holds and wields the magic wand. Now the magic wand is your pineal gland, your vertical pillar of your axis that aligns with the photon belt and the fabric of that crystal bridge, that celestial bridge that holds all that pre-matter fabric that you work with. That's your magic wand. Is you wield the magic wand. It's your pineal gland as a camcorder, as a camera, as a photocopier, as a television set. It's inner technology. You wield that. You are the scientist and the magician as one. That's who the priest wizards are. The photon belt celestial bridge will be a blank canvas playground, a blank canvas of abundant creativity. So that is your pure potential of the 0 point. And thus the greatest gift one can receive in human incarnate experience. So to actually experience being part of that is the greatest gift. And that you will remember that that occurred at the time of Atlantis as well. So you won't see destruction. You then bypass the destruction templates. You don't see the Death Star holograms, the destruction Death Star templates as holograms in your memory. You're aware of it, but you raise to the Genesis codes, which is the creation of planets, the seeding of light upon planets, the seeding of DNA upon planets, and the growth of abundant lush greenery and forests and fruit and animals and beautiful beings. Your memories go there. This is the switch between this polarity. You choose where you take your visual, because the memory is the same thing as the manifestation. The visual of your memory is the same thing as the visual of your manifestation. That's what keys in with this blank canvas of the photon belt. So that's why it's the greatest gift one can receive in human incarnate experience, because it's enlightenment. That's what it is. It's enlightenment and it's ascension, or within the path of that and moving through that. Enlightenment and ascension is a process, and you're in the process. So I think that's a good place to end this video. I've gone through quite a lot of the analysis of the response the 9 gave, and I will come back with another video to finish the response and to also look at the questions that I asked. Yeah, there's still quite a long way to go, so it may be more than one video, but anyway, I will return with another video. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this information, and I will see you again soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
What is karma? Are there ways we can balance this and become karma-free? Is there a particular nutritional plan we should follow for ascension? Do we increase our karmic balance by eating certain foods? How can we utilize sex magic to work with karma and move through ascension? There are many lessons we can learn from the peoples of ancient Lemuria, a civilization that existed before our known history on planet Earth. As we move through an ascension process collectively, we move back into a new Lemuria, and we take with us all the knowledge we have accumulated since those times. In this transmission from the white-winged collective consciousness of 9, key codes are presented for cellular memory recall, linking the reader beyond Atlantis and into the harmonious frequencies of the first physical civilization on the Earth, Lemuria. The 9 respond to questions using the Lemurian way as a template. Key-coded responses trigger activations within the reader as they receive the wisdom codes, standing as rainbow warriors of Gaia, moving into abundance, alchemy, and Stargate ascension. This transmission is dear to my heart, and I'm so very pleased to announce my new book, Lessons from a Living Lemuria.